Okay, so this is a video on how Claude and OpenAI, actually the latest one, 5.1, they're not even in the same league, right? So here's the case. I was coding this test, which is one of my tests, and now having this bug. So this is actually an exception because my type safety checks here. And if you look at the error, basically the error is saying invalid type for mean confidence, which is there because I was expecting this class, which is the safe float confidence, what we got the safe float. Now, what happened is here, we either were expecting this class, safe float confidence, because it's on the schema. So if you look at the schema for this defines safe float. So that passes, right? And the problem is because I'm using, in this case, safe float, just not safe float with confidence, it was failing. But you can actually see that. And by the way, the reason I do this is because I want to lock it straight away, and I would runtime type safety on the minimum value and the maximum value. All right. So float is not enough because float could be a massive number, right? So, but this kind of defines one of my principles, which is it should be straightforward. I should be able to do this because I should be able to convert one to the other, right? The same way that actually, if you look at it, if I just put the float in there, it already works nicely, right? So what I do with this case is when I have this, I write the bug. So this is a bug text, right? And in fact, here, I actually thought the error was captured here on this type safe check. But actually, the error is actually happening on the constructor. But anyway, so what I do is I wrote a test here that replicates it, right? So you could say basically I got basically my custom float, which is that okay, overrides that one. I have a class, and when I create a method here, it will execute it. So in fact, actually ignore this because this actually I thought it was there. It was actually raised here, which is a better case. But you can see there's my error message, right? Invalid case for type thing. I was expecting the type classification filter service custom safe float, but we got safe float, right? So what I do next is I take this and I go into my type safe project, which has tons of tests, and I add a test that replicates that. So you could see it's here, right? So this is my test. It's actually a bit cleaned up, but that's the test that I have. And in this test, just to double check, right? And I will put that back on. Um, so this test basically will pass while the bug is there, right? So now you can see the test passes. If I just change this, you see it failed, right? So, so this basically fails whenever this conversion from, if I provide basically a safe float here, right? So again, you can see if I put the custom safe float, it will now say I didn't raise the exception because that worked. So what I then do is I have this nice little util that allows me to get a whole dump of the repo in one go. So I go OS utils, I say starts with this, give me all the type safe. So this actually gives me 160 files, about I think 60 to 70,000 tokens, right, of size. This contains the entire code base of the sort of the type safe stuff. I give it to Claude, and I literally give that and say, hey, on your touch code base, can you confirm that it's a bug? See, you can find the root cause. And he thinks about it, he goes to the stuff, follows the process, and then he goes, yes, it's a bug. Let me trace it. When you pass this, expects this. The root cause is here. Absolutely freaking spot on in the resolve value. And that's the point, right? So this conversion only hands converting from Python primitives to type safe. Correct. That's why they work. The problem is when this is a safe float, although it has from float, the condition is false. So no conversion happened. That is absolutely spot on analysis. So the code needs to handle the conversion. So it gives me this code base, which I actually put on, and it's here. And I tried out, and it actually worked. But when I reviewed it, I was like, actually, but I said, hey, why it should actually work? Why don't I just do this, which is much simpler, literally one line of code, right? And then I give it a couple more examples because you can see on this other test, the conversions already happened. So I give it a bit more context. And then, Claude goes, you're right, the simple version should work. And then looking at this, it handles so it gives me a much cleaner architecture. So it tells me there's the fix, right? And the fix is better because delegate, simple, exact, right? So, and you can see the fix is here. This is literally the fix, one line. Oh, sorry, fix is this one here, two lines that I do not. And then, I don't need any of these now. And basically, if I pass this, you can see that now my exceptions did not raise, which basically means that this test, this is not relevant anymore. I can now have a test that confirms that if I pass a safe float in there, the type of my value is still custom safe float, which is exactly what it should be. This is a test passes. This is now going to be a regression, which I'm going to add to my regression tests. What's also very important is if I run all my tests, which in this case are these 2,412 tests, 1.45 seconds, pretty cool. I had no side effects, which is great. So I can commit. The crazy thing is I did the same thing for OpenAI, and immediately like much worse experience, right? Like when I paste code in Claude, Claude converts it into this little thing, which is much better. OpenAI gives me the whole freaking thing, right? But I gave the exact same prompt I gave to Claude, and OpenAI kind of goes on these tangents. It starts to understand, oh, see how bad user experience this is. So OpenAI eventually, here we go, starts to look at it, and actually, it literally doesn't get the point. It literally says, and this is quite interesting because I do have documentation that explains the intent behavior of the type safe classes and how they're supposed to actually try to do the right thing whenever possible, which is a perfect example. But in this case, he didn't get it. So it says, oh, it's actually an error because the code base should raise it. So he doesn't actually get that point. And basically go into an analysis, what the test is, what's the assignment, the default values. It kind of follows through the code, the set attributes. It doesn't actually pick up, it finds that result there, but it doesn't pick that there's the bug here, right? And the key point is there, and then it actually gives me the checks to fail, and then he basically at the end says it's a bug, it's actually not. So, his behavior is wrong, safe all converts. So not at all what I wanted, right? And he didn't give me the right solution, and kind of, plays a bit with that, but he didn't have the end level of understanding with Claude. So have massive props to Claude, and I experience all the time, which is literally why I don't use OpenAI for code, and I just try today to say, hey, I wonder how good it is. It just remind me that it's not even in the same league as Claude code. Especially, what's powerful about this is also like these little questions, right? It's the fact that I can zoom in on the narrative, I can zoom in on the architecture, and he really understands what I'm trying to do. So yeah, much better.